All right, so Trump is on the news again. Pete Hegseth is in Asia. Trump is talking about Venezuela. There's a lot of action across the world, Mexico, Nigeria, and many other places. So we're going to talk a little bit about this because this is all tangible stuff that's being projected and talked about in the media. But I believe there are other things going on behind the scenes. And also, if you want to tie in some of the global cabal operation and the takedown of that, we'll connect it to some of the Q things as well as just other things that I want to put together. So let's get into it.
You said that it's not true that you've made a decision on striking in Venezuela. Are there actual plans for those strikes in the near future?
Well, how can I answer a question like that? Are there plans for a strike on Venezuela? Who would say that? Supposing there were, would I say that to you, honest? We have very secret plans. Well, who would say that? You know, what kind of a question is it? Look, we'll see what happens with Venezuela.
Every time he answers interview questions about international diplomacy and on some of the war stuff, he always dodges it and he talks about it in some kind of secretive or clandestine effort. And so this is part of, I believe, what this operation is. You can't just talk about it outright, overtly. And so the reason a lot of people are asking about this is because, yes, there's rhetoric. He's tweeting about it. He's talking about it. He's calling the country out in terms of Maduro and the president, as well as the entire cartel system. But the Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carrier is on its way, confirmed, to the Caribbean. So this is big. It was in the Mediterranean for a long time. And this is the first of many future ships of this class. And this outdid the previous class of ships, the Nimitz class. And so I think there's only one of this so far, more to be made. And there's like 10 or whatever it is of the Nimitz class. So this is a future-proof, huge state-of-the-art ship. And this is, obviously protected by many destroyers and other, whatever submarines and things like that. But it's huge. This is literally going to take down a country, and it's going towards the Caribbean as we speak now. The cover story in some sense is, the boats. He's not going to attack the country itself. And I don't believe he's obviously not going to attack the people. But there's something going on here. They're preparing, they're moving, and it's just something that is very suspect. And so I'm not going to insinuate what's happening here, but definitely there is a global operation, as Q has always talked about. And if you haven't heard, a mayor in Mexico was killed, and this is on social media, but during a Day of the Dead festival, some cartel members came up and literally just murdered him. And this sparked outrage in Mexico. So there's planned protests for this assassination. I think a lot of people are getting together to organize, something. But the question a lot of people are asking is the Trump administration going to do something? And somebody apparently, and again, I'm not saying this is true or not, some current or former U.S. official is saying that the Trump administration is planning a new mission against the cartels in the actual country. And so again, whether this is some clandestine effort, whether it's a joint operation by Mexico, or it's just nothing at all. And Trump, if he's going to do something, he's obviously going to brush it off because this is going to spark a global sort of debate in terms of, are you attacking this country or that? But something is happening with the Caribbean, South America, and Latin America, that area. And so I just want to table that. And then as I mentioned the other day about Nigeria and Trump calling out the Christians being attacked and killed, I talked about that and just went into that. But here he made another tweet. He said, and this is obviously a couple of days ago, but he's saying the Nigerian government, if they continue to allow the killings of Christians, the U.S. will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like how the terrorist thugs attacked our cherished Christians. So he's warning the Nigerian government, you better move fast. And of course they responded and they're trying to, brush this off and all of that. But this is very strong rhetoric. And there's a lot of backlash, a lot of different talks about this, even questioning Christians, are they even being killed, and the numbers and all that. But it's very interesting what discourse, what talks are coming out of this. And what's also interesting is Pete Hegseth is currently in South Korea right now, where I live. And he's just going on this crazy speech thing, and he's talking to military people. They did an entire thing, a ceremony for him and a band played. They played the national anthems. I saw this whole thing, and they're on a car. They're celebrating him and just this unity. And publicly, they're talking about, yeah, we need to upgrade our alliance. And recently, President Lee Jae-myung talked about getting approval for a nuclear submarine. This is when Trump was back here. But here, apparently, they're trying to strengthen their ties with South Korea and just this greater Asia Pacific area with the troops being there. But really, the message was having more flexibility is what came out of this. And what was insinuated was that that flexibility means not only that the U.S. troops are in South Korea and respond to, North Korea and other regional threats, but more outside of Asia. And so if this means China, Taiwan, if this means going, more south, more east or north into, Russia area or something, whatever this means, it is very telling because he's there. And this doesn't happen often where there's this celebration, this fanfare. And don't forget, President Lee Jae-myung gave the highest honor that you can give to a foreign dignitary, the president of the U.S., a couple weeks ago or the other week when he came here. And this was huge news. And this is coming again from a very liberal president. And then there's other talks of, Korea pushing for OPCON transfer, meaning that South Korea would help be more independent in its defensive capabilities, calling on Washington to allow, certain transitions, maybe of power, of responsibility and all that. But there's a lot of talk. This is public stuff. But again, what is happening behind the scenes is the question. And I want to go over a couple of Q posts because it's very interesting. Remember, this was November 2nd back in 2017. And again, this is part of this whole plan, this whole movie, if you want to call it, just a lot of things. But it's very telling what has been forecasted or foreshadowed in some sense because, again, I'm not saying this is happening right now, but part of the post is talking about Korea. It's talking about this whole, global operation. Listen to post 38, 4 carriers and escorts in the Pacific. Why is that relevant? To prevent other state actors from attempting to harm us during this transition? Russia, China, or conversely, all for North Korea or all three? Think logically about the timing of everything happening. Note increased military movement. Note National Guard deployment starting tomorrow. Note false flags. Follow HUMA. Prepare messages of reassurance based on what was dropped here to spread on different platforms. The calm before the storm. Now look at what it's insinuating. This transition is what stuck out to me. And I don't know if this is in reference to the Ford carrier, but it's interesting because there are things that need to happen in the Pacific. There are things that have to go on during this transition. Now, here is where it gets crazy. Look at post 39. Would it blow your mind if I told you Barack Obama, BO, has been to North Korea and perhaps there now? Why did his administration do little to slow their nuclear and missile capabilities? Who feeds North Korea with strategic intel? Iran? What deal was done with Iran under Barack Obama? Why was the deal sealed under a top secret classification? Why hasn't Congress notified? Why, after Barack Obama left office, all of a sudden North Korea has nukes and the tech to miniaturize for payload delivery within the U.S.? What about NSA, CIA, DI, etc., all confirming tech won't be in place for 5+ years? Statements that were made in 2016. Why is all of this relevant, and what does it tell you? Big picture is rare. And then post 50 talks about big drop. How did North Korea obtain uranium? How did Iran obtain uranium? Why did Barack Obama send billions in cash and wire to Iran? Why the cash component? Was the hostage component a cover for what? Could any of the cash components be handed off to other people? How many planes carried the cash into Iran? Did all land in Iran? Did all land in the same location? Why is this relevant? Who controls North Korea? Who really controls North Korea? Don't think of a single person. Think of a powerful entity. Why is this important? Why are wars so important? Who benefits? What does hostage refer to? Who can be held hostage and controlled by North Korea having miniaturized nuclear weapons? Where is Barack Obama today? Where is VJ, Alice, and Wonderland? Now think about what's happening here. There's an insinuation that North Korea and many of these other countries are not under the command of their own dictator or president in the case of Kim Jong-un. This is crazy because Barack Obama and some other syndicate of people, this whole group or whoever it is behind the scenes, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever name you want to put on there, they are doing certain things and there's a transition away from this power into Trump, the white hats and dismantling this whole global system. And this is what's happening right now with regards to the war. And so I'm not saying that, this one country, this one people group, they are, part of the evil thing. There's a system going on. There are people, and I believe in the example of North Korea, they were told, you will be this hermit land and we're going to use you for things. And think about it. Is Kim Jong-un and North Korea going to do any damage to the whole world? They're not. They're playing a role as they're being puppeted by some other greater power. And so if it is true that Barack Obama landed in North Korea, has control over this whole thing, with him being one of many, then it's absolutely crazy, mind-blowing. And this is part of that transition. This is part of that global attack that we need to get rid of in terms of the control that they have over these nations. And I believe we are in the middle of that global war right now as we speak. So as it's being transitioned, as it's being cleaned up, you're seeing people, Pete Hegseth, Trump, many guys moving carriers, moving people during this time, this transition, something that you're not going to just project and say, oh, this is the moves we're going to make, but rather you're just going to do them so that you can free the nations, you can free the people, you can free the leaders from this whole network of things. And listen to what Obama is saying right now. During this whole voting thing that's happening as we speak Tuesday, Barack Obama is coming out of nowhere and helping to galvanize, I guess, the Democrats, the left. And he's panicking because he is saying things that, again, for a president who has to be, saving face and giving this image off, he's doing things that is trying to derail what Trump is doing. And it's not working. Now, to those that are, sheep and they're asleep and all that, they're eating this up. But listen to what he's saying.
We got a president who thinks it's okay to use the Justice Department to go after his political opponents. We've got a president who replaces career prosecutors with loyalists who will do what he wants. We've got a commander-in-chief who hires decorated officers because he thinks they might be more loyal to the Constitution than they are to him. He's deploying the National Guard in American cities, claiming to stop crime waves that don't actually exist. We've got masked ICE agents pulling up in unmarked vans and grabbing people, including U.S. citizens, off the streets on the suspicion that they don't look like real Americans. We've got an HHS secretary who opposes proven science, a top White House aide who calls Democrat, the whole party, domestic extremists. I will admit it's worse than even I expected, but I did warn y'all. I did. You can run the tape. And by the way, he warned you too, because
I'm not going to finish the rest of that, but he's going on and he's skewing all of what Trump is doing and making it sound negative. And you have to understand what propaganda is. You have to understand how they're trying to demean, undermine, and change the way that certain things are happening. And if you're awake and you have discernment, then you know that this is not good. And so he's panicking and you can see it clearly. And this is part of what they do before something big happens. So I'm showing this because just as Letitia James, just as many of the other guys, before they were prosecuted, before they were taken in, they shouted loudly. Those, I think Hugh says, those who shout the loudest, they have the most to lose. And so you're seeing that here with Obama, with many others, because right before they are prosecuted, whatever it is that's happening. And I think Dick Cheney just passed away the other day, or today, in fact. And again, I'm not saying what happened there, but it's very sus what's happening with certain people as they are taking deals. I think Nancy Pelosi, Q talks about how some people in post-24, any person making statements they will not be seeking re-election was put in submission for the betterment of the country. Not all will be prosecuted and will do as told. You will see more of this occur, not normal yet disregarded, and even on the D side. And so I say this because recently Nancy Pelosi, I think, is not seeking re-election, and that's part of what comes to mind with this, as well as just other people being prosecuted for whatever it is that's happening right now. And so you're seeing something happening. I'm not insinuating, we're, have, nukes and all that, even though there's rhetoric around that people are going to die and all of that stuff. But some transition is happening. Something's happening globally. And we are in some kind of war. People are moving around, carriers, ships, and all these things. And you're seeing people have diplomatic, relations and discussions with other countries, and who knows what's happening as all of this is being cleaned up. So be encouraged, guys. And again, I do want to mention, I am trying to wrap up my fundraiser. We're only a few $1,000s short, guys. The link is down below, givesendgo.com/chrisyoonyt. If you guys want to help me, would love it if we can get over the line. We're almost there, guys. If you also want to support me, PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, I have that also listed down below. Let's get over this line. Love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.